Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you all are having a wonderful day. Today, we are back with another anime video that I am pretty excited about. Yesterday, we did the top 5 favorite anime that I have ever seen. Today, we're going to be doing the top 5 least favorite anime that I have seen. Again, let me reiterate in case you haven't seen yesterday's video, I'm not a giant weeb. I have not seen a tremendous amount of anime. I've only seen about 50 shows, but there are certainly some shows that I watched that, they're super popular and a lot of people love them and a lot of people recommended them to me because they're like, oh, you got to watch this, it's so great. And I really, not only did I not find them interesting, but I found problems with them that I was surprised haven't seemingly been pointed out. And that's what we're going to be doing today. These are 5 series that, I'm not saying they're terrible, I'm not saying they're the worst anime series of all time, but there's a discrepancy between how popular they are and how good they actually are, and I want to give a little bit of criticism here. I realize some of you guys are going to like these shows, you're going to hate me for criticizing them, but I hope you can keep an open mind, and with that being said, let's get into the list. Number 5, let's start off recent, ReZero. ReZero is a very cool concept that I loved episodes 1 through 6 or so. Episodes 1 through 6 are so well put together and have so much good going on with them. To my knowledge, this is an original idea. I've not seen another anime or television series or really movie or anything that plays around the idea of not only being transported to a fantasy world, but if you die in the fantasy world, you respawn. And that's a really cool idea. That's that's something that we sort of take for granted when we play video games and whatnot. It's a cool idea that is expanded on relatively well and has a lot of cool stuff that can go on throughout the story where it's very well done in the first 6 episodes. I think that Subaru's reaction to everything is very believable. I think the way that he reacts saying that, at first he's sort of overconfident, knowing that he's the hero, knowing that he's the main protagonist, but then he gets his ass kicked, which is a very believable thing that would happen if you get transported to a fantasy world, is being a little overconfident, thinking you know what's going on, then getting your ass kicked for it. Then he, when he eventually dies, he goes through the horror of dying and having to respawn and try and prevent that from happening again, and he gets super nervous and everything. And all of his reactions, again, for the first 6 episodes or so, are very believable. And it's a very well put together show for those first 6 episodes. But then it completely goes off the rails. I loved everything in those first 6 episodes, and even in later episodes, there's some good redeeming qualities. Beetlejuice is a very cool character. Puck is a very interesting character. Even Rem and Ram, their backstory is a super exciting and well put together backstory, and Ram is a very good character again. But all of that is abandoned. All of that is abandoned for stupid waifu shit. All of that is abandoned where you don't get any resolution for why Subaru was transported to the world, why he's respawning when he dies, how the witch has any sort of connection to it all. You don't get any answers to the story, the very exciting story that got me on the edge of my seat for those first 6 episodes and made me want to find out what happens by the end of it. You don't get any resolution at all. You just get this stupid show that appeals to people that have never had a relationship, and it's like, oh, you get to see the relationship and feel good at the end when it started off as something that could have been so much more than just some stupid sappy love story. That's what pisses me off about ReZero so much. It was a very good idea and a very good story that could have been so much more than it ended up being, but it seemed like it was just abandoned for the sake of trying to be as weeby as possible with all the waifu stuff, and that is why this is on number 5 of this list. Number 4 is Attack on Titan. Now, Attack on Titan is probably one of the most popular anime of the past couple of years. Attack on Titan is a very cool and original idea that I think it's doing what anime does really well, and what anime does really well is take original ideas and original stories and try to do something with them. Now, it's a cool idea, an original idea, as I said, and I watched it for the first 6 or so episodes, or first 16 or so episodes, I should say. Now, I should preface this by saying I'm not a big fan of dystopian things, and I think it's fair to say that it's a pretty dystopian kind of story, even if it's not like a dystopian story in the same way 1984 is, or The Handmaid's Tale. It's still a kind of negative story where humanity is about to be wiped out by these giant things. And I could suspend my little, quip at first. I could say, okay, maybe the story really isn't for me, or it's not the sort of thing that I normally like, but it's a very cool idea And for the most part, the characters and everything were very well put together. I loved Potato Girl and all the characters for the most part. They're all very interesting and seemingly well developed. Now, I did really start to, it grated on me that there wasn't any real explanation or like expansion on the story for the first however many episodes. But then the thing that eventually I stopped watching it for was around episode 13 to 16. There was one episode where, I'll try not spoil it, but a very exciting development in the story happened. And the episode after that was the entire thing started off with, I remember so well going to the next episode and being like, wow, that's awesome. That's exciting. That's cool. How is this going to impact everything? And then the entire next episode is a flashback. It's a flashback to some, I don't even know. It didn't do anything to expand the story. It didn't do anything. It felt like the thing that pissed me off about that was that wasn't just a filler episode for the sake of trying to just extend the series and be a filler episode. I can forgive a filler episode, particularly if it has a point. Like in Breaking Bad, that Fly episode would probably be the only filler episode of the series, in my opinion, but it sort of goes to show it has a point in the story that it's talking about how Walt is sort of getting a little bit insane about having everything be perfect because he realizes in this what kind of situation he's in, and if a little slip up happens, then he could lose his life and his family could lose their lives. It sort of speaks to the character of Walt, the fact that they spend an entire episode sort of chasing this fly around the place. Now, that's a filler episode, but it has a point. The filler episode in Attack on Titan, though, felt like the writers were actually trying to say fuck you to me, because I was so excited. Anyone would be excited that this giant cliffhanger just happened, and anyone would want to go and watch the next episode as soon as possible. And then to have the very next episode after your cliffhanger be a filler episode that just has some flashback that means nothing, that's what ruined the show for me. And, I mean, a lot of people complain about the pacing of Attack on Titan, but I'm just going to be another one of those people. I never finished it because of it. Number 3 is Terror in Resonance. Now, Terror in Resonance, or Terror in Tokyo, I don't know how to pronounce the Japanese name of it, is one of the shows that was made by the guy that made Samurai Champloo and Cowboy Bebop after Samurai Champloo and Cowboy Bebop, and then after he made the show, the jazz show, about the kid that plays piano. It was a great start. Again, this is a show that has a very interesting and compelling start. And I remember thinking in episodes 1 through 6, 1 through 8, that this is going to be another great show where I think it's one of the best shows ever. It's going to be just like Samurai Champloo and Cowboy Bebop, a very different setting, a very different kind of story, but I'm loving it so much to a point that I think it's going to be as good as those previous shows, and it's going to be one of my favorites of all time. Maybe it was that expectation that I was setting myself up to be disappointed by. The thing that really took this show off the rails, I'll try and not spoil too much, is the weird female character that's introduced about halfway through. You guys know what I'm talking about if you've seen it. There's this weird, I think she has like pink hair, purple hair, this weird female character that's introduced that's sort of supposed to have a backstory with the two main characters and is a character that is supposed to have a little bit of a rivalry. And she is a very poorly developed and poorly utilized character. The thing that really was the ultimate sin for this show, in my opinion, was about halfway through, there's this scene where it doesn't really make sense. They're running around an airport and playing chess by running around an airport, and the main character is like trying to battle her, and then if he wins, then the airport doesn't get blown up or something. I forget the details of it. I think there's like some hostage situation, and she's making him play this game of chess. And then if you watch the actual chess game that they're playing, they're making illegal moves. I think the first move that they make is a pawn moves 3 spaces forward. And I laughed just thinking about it. It broke the entire show for me. I was like, hang on. This isn't actually a masterpiece. They didn't even know how to play chess. They're trying to make it as like this giant battle of wits, but these characters who are supposed to be these geniuses having this battle of wits don't even know how to play chess. And then you suddenly go from thinking these are 2 geniuses to thinking that these are 2 retarded people, where they have this rivalry over each other, but everyone just laughs at them because they're so stupid. They don't even know how to play chess. That's something that would be so easy to fix, too. You know, a great thing they could have done in that series, in that scene, is they could have just looked up a famous chess match and looked up moves that are made in a famous chess match, and then just like repeat those moves throughout the show when they're doing the chess match. So, for instance, they could look up, you know, Fischer versus Spassky. That's the most famous chess match I know, and they could just copy the moves that they make, and then those are the moves that they do. You know, pawn from e2 to e4 or whatever. They could have done that, and that would have been so good, because not only, if they did have the fucking pieces move as the pieces are allowed to move, people could have probably still looked at that if they're chess nerds and say, wow, these guys are actually idiots. These are the worst strategies ever. I assume they wouldn't have very good strategies if they don't even know how the pieces move. A chess nerd could still look at that, but if they just copied the moves that famous people made, then not only would they be actually making legal moves, but they would be given this little bit of an Easter egg. Nobody could criticize it for having moves that are stupid or poor strategy, because they're the best in the world. The best in the world made these moves. And it would be this fun little Easter egg. And it would have been so well done, but instead they chose a lazy route. And as I saw, hang on, that's a really lazy decision, I started seeing a lot of other lazy decisions. When the characters that are American or English or something start speaking English, and it's very clearly a Japanese person trying to imitate English, I don't know why anime does that. There's no other show on Earth that does that. If you watch any American film or American movie and you have someone that's speaking Spanish or speaking German, you have actual German being spoken. You have actual Spanish being spoken. It just completely shattered my suspension of disbelief seeing that chess thing happen, and then seeing all the other flaws that happen, realizing how this purple-haired stupid girl is, okay, hang on, she's a really badly written character, a really poorly developed character. Okay, hang on, what is that? Is that English? I can't even understand it. And seeing all these problems, it ended on a kind of high note, and it did sort of... it did a kind of good job of catching itself at the end, from preventing it from turning it into an ultimate train wreck, but it's still, it could have been so good. It could have been so good. Next up, number 2 on this list is Death Parade. Death Parade is another show that a lot of people love, and a lot of people told me I needed to watch when I told them that I don't, that I want to watch more good anime. And Death Parade, I have to say, was a pretty good anime for the most part. It was a pretty good anime in that it had a solid amount of character development, a very interesting story. It had pretty cool characters for the most part. There was a bit of a problem, in my opinion, of not really expanding on the other characters that are sort of in this interdimensional realm. The old guy that I forget, I haven't watched it in a while. Is the old guy supposed to like represent God, or like the leader of the spirits or whatever that they are? I would have liked to see more development on those other characters in this realm. If they're going to be included, if they don't want to develop them, then they can certainly just choose to not include them. But the fact that there's a little bit of a problem there. But the real problem I had with Death Parade was it was very clearly trying to sort of take the idea of Buddhism, but it turned it on its head in a way that just didn't make sense, and it completely ruined the show for me. So Buddhism was sort of supposed, as is my understanding, it's been a while since I took a religious class, or a class on studying religion, but as is my understanding, one of the things of Buddhism was it sort of ended a problem that Hinduism had, in that Hinduism had a endless cycle of reincarnation, right? In Hinduism, if you, as is my understanding in Hinduism, you lead a good life, you're reincarnated into a much better thing in your next life. If you lead a bad life, you're reincarnated into a much worse thing. Buddhism sort of ended that endless cycle of reincarnation by having enlightenment. If you become enlightened, then you get to go to paradise or heaven or what. Again, my bad, religious scholars. I'm probably butchering these religions. But that's sort of, as is my understanding, one of the benefits of Buddhism is that it sort of ended that endless cycle of reincarnation where when you find enlightenment, you get to, your soul rests. Death Parade did the complete opposite. In Death Parade, the way the story goes, for those of you that don't know, is that there's an endless cycle of reincarnation until you fuck up and lead a bad life, and then you're sentenced to eternal damnation. In Death Parade, the two options that you have is the good option is reincarnation, and the bad option is hell. That seemed like an incredibly depressing and weirdly unnecessarily, like, I don't know, it sounded so depressing. It made it difficult for me to really watch the show and enjoy it. I have no problem with depressing shows. I have no problem with feeling sad in a television series. But that just it was like either life is pain or I was just so shocked at how unreasonable that seemed. That this is either way too ridiculous to be true, or if this is actually how the afterlife works, then holy moly, life is torture. Like, it just sort of blew me away with that, and it seemed like something that just didn't make sense in that way that, I gotta include it on this list because it sort of shocked me. Again, it was a pretty interesting story, pretty interesting development, and pretty interesting characters and everything, but it just, I don't know, it shocked me at how weird and depressing it was, the entire concept of it was, and that definitely sort of ruined the show for me, and, yeah. And then, number one on this list, you guys all know what it is. It's SAO. You know, a shameful secret that I have, I actually looked up the other day whether or not the SAO movie was being screened anywhere near me. The SAO movie came out a few days ago, and I was looking to see if it was going to be out anywhere near me. It wasn't screening anywhere near me, so I was like, okay, I don't have to go watch it. But then I thought, oh, would I have actually gone and watched it? Yeah, SAO, I don't know what there is to say about it that hasn't already been said. You guys know how terrible it is, despite the fact that it's one of the most popular anime out there at the moment. It's so popular, but it's so bad. Kirito is a terribly written character, complete Mary Sue. There's problems in SAO that you would never find in any other anime or any other Western show, save for fan fiction. SAO has the problems that fan fiction has. Like, that's how bad SAO is, with the Mary Sue main character, with the weirdest ass pulls and continuity errors and the terrible writing and the character development. And the fact that nothing makes sense, too. Like, nothing makes sense in a video game perspective. Like, it's obvious that the writer, Reki Kawahara, has no idea how video games work, how video games are sold, how video games are played, what makes people want to play games. There's plenty of videos out on why SAO is terrible on YouTube already. I don't think I have to reiterate it here. Anyway, though, that's my list of my top 5 least favorite anime. I hope you guys all enjoyed watching it. If you did not, I understand it. I understand if you didn't like me complaining about your show, but I hope you were able to get some enjoyment out of it. I love talking about the goods and bads of shows, even shows that I like. I like talking about the criticisms of them because I think it's important for us as consumers and for writers and people that work in the anime or film industries. It's important to be able to point out flaws, because if we don't see the flaws that we have, then we'll constantly repeat them in our future works. We gotta remember that. Anyway, I'll see you all tomorrow. Until then, though, thank you very much for watching. Have a wonderful day.